Teddy Long. What I want to say, Mean Gene, and what I want to say to all my friends out there, Mean Gene, is that Marcus Alexander Bagwell. See how Teddy used to dip down when he come up with a, all my
Oh, I
friends,
love bending the knees. That's
yeah,
fun.
bending the knees, yeah. And say what I want to say to Scorpio. If you take a look at him right now, what he's patting on right now is a long snake,
What?
the biggest one in the business.
What?
Yes, sir. That's right. He has hurt some women with that thing right
Oh,
there.
we yeah.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I heard that he would put Colonel Robert Parker to shame.
God is God. Um,
Go ahead.
let's talk about some news from WCW in that era, can we?
Okay. Yeah, let's do.
We got a big write up in the Observer before Starrcade. I guess they were actually reviewing Starrcade, and
Right.
they're just talking about his entire timeline of his career. It's something else. If you're an Observer reader, I would encourage you to go find the one that's dated January 3rd, 1994. It just lays out pretty much his entire career, and it's pretty remarkable. The
You talking
write
about
up
you talking about Flair's career?
flares, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
and it was all to talk about Starrcade, of course. And he gave Flair and Vader in the main event 4.5 stars. If that match, just based on the emotion of the crowd and the story they told, like if that's not 5 stars, what is, Tony?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. It goes back to the discussion we've had on an earlier podcast. What constitutes a 5-star match?
Right.
And I think, to me, I think the number one thing that constitutes a 5-star match is the emotion in the match or the emotion of the storyline. Of course, they got to perform. I get that. But I mean, that thing was a 5-star match.
There's no doubt.
Yep.
Let's talk about some other news and notes from this time. 1994 is interesting because you're seeing Terry Funk wrestling Sabu for the ECW title. You're also seeing Mike Awesome in ECW debuting. This is way back in 1994. Actually, that was the day after Christmas, 1993. But it's written here both Flair and Vader came out of the match worse for wear. Vader, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't wrestled since that match, although he went to all the cities and did interviews. He had his eye totally shut, apparently, during the point where Flair banged him twice with a chair and then had him laying on the apron and was throwing punches to his face. I guess Vader wanted Flair to really lay him in. He also suffered a toe injury when his toe hit first when he did the moonsault. Flair worked the next night in Winston-Salem, even though he was banged up. But on the 28th in Raleigh, he was back at the show, but simply came out as a second for Arn Anderson. Anderson's first match back was in Winston-Salem against Paul Roma. There are no noticeable stab wounds, but as would be expected, he didn't appear to be in the best shape after being out of the ring for 2 months. By the way, the stuff in Flair's house at the beginning of the pay-per-view was shot a few weeks before the pay-per-view, although the post-match stuff was live, which is why he had 3 kids at the beginning of the show and 4 kids at the end. Well, it's also worth noting that Megan would have been 19.
Right.
So she's a legal adult off to college,
Mm-hmm.
and David is not yet out of the house. So, yeah, he's at the house because he's there on Christmas break.
Okay.
But Megan wasn't. I mean, she's a grown up.
Right.
But I find it interesting that Anderson's first match back is a few days after Christmas. So just the day after Starrcade, that's when Arn's back. As a reminder, Sid was supposed to be in Flair's spot. Him and Arn getting a stabbing contest in the UK. Sid gets fired. We need a new main event. It's Ric Flair. And Arn comes back the next day. Did you think at any point, based on Arn's injuries, that they may have been so devastating he wouldn't return, or did you know he'd always be back? It's just a matter of when.
No, I thought he'd be out for quite a while, from just the reports I heard. And back then you just hear word of mouth stuff. But I thought Arn would be out quite a while, and then Arn didn't talk about it that much. Afterwards, there really wasn't much discussion about it from Arn. I didn't go up to Arn and say, "Hey, tell me about how that happened."
Yeah, why would you?
Yeah, exactly. But it's something I wouldn't mind talking to him about it now.
Yeah. The issue is though, and I understand this. Arn didn't want to talk about it. It's
Yeah.
hey, it's in the rearview mirror.
Right.
We've moved on.
Right.
Talking about it just stirs up shit. Put it in the
Right.
past. Put it in the rear view, which I get.
Yeah.
Sting was on MTV the 2 days prior to this. He was a judge for a lip syncing contest. Flair was on the sidelines for the University of Florida Sugar Bowl.
Mm.
He gets a huge crowd reaction, taking photos with a bunch of players there. Chris Cruz and Larry Zbyszko are going to be doing the Power Hour from this point forward. And it's written here, apparently there's a major feud going on with Gene Okerlund and Jesse Ventura against Jim Ross. Okerlund made some sarcastic remarks about Ross on the hotline, although nothing serious. But Ventura has gone a lot deeper on TV, including this past week on Worldwide, asking, whatever happened to the fat Okie that made a remark about me broadcasting shows that have midgets dressed up as clowns? Like Ventura has never broadcasted on a show that had a midget dressed up like a shark trying to blow up a boat. Ross was on his WWF radio show and called Ventura overrated and made comments about Dusty Rhodes' weight, which was equally ironic. Man, this is obviously in the era where JR has switched jerseys and he's working for the competition.
Right.
But do you remember Gene and Jesse trying to just sneak in little jabs against JR in this era?
Yeah, I remember Jesse when JR showed up at, I think I've told this story before. JR showed up at the WrestleMania, right? His first show, wearing a toga. And Jesse said on Saturday night, there's nothing worse on television than seeing a fat man in a toga. And he was talking about JR.
Yep.
And JR came back to the office to, I guess, to clear his desk. This was after WrestleMania. And he heard about the comment and he jumped on me about it. He said, "Do you think that was funny? Did you? Did you think it was?" He was really upset. I said, "Jim," I said, "I didn't think it was funny, but listen, that's him saying it, not me. So don't jump on me." And then Jim calmed down. Later, he said, "I apologize. I know it wasn't you. I'm just pissed off at what Jesse had to say." So I do remember that. And I do remember he and Jesse just did not get along because when Jesse came to work for WCW and was working with JR on Saturday night, Jesse was making more money than JR. And that pissed JR off from what I remember. And so JR didn't take too kindly to it. And that's why the animosity brewed and bubbled over between the two.
We're talking over a pretty incredible main event. It's Sting versus Steve Austin. Once upon a time, that would have been a dream match, but it happened. And it's here on January 1st, 1994. Thank you guys for joining us and watching along with us.